I'm your host, John Myers, live from Stillwater, Oklahoma. We have got a great show tonight. It's John Myers. Hey, everybody. Gotta have my notes. It's John Myers from the Kicker UnMasked Studios. Gotta have my notes. Alternator. Hey, everybody. We have fun. Hey, everybody. Hit like and subscribe. Right here, right now. It's John Myers. We like to give stuff away. Alternator. Post some more pictures. We got to thank Steve and Becky live from Stillwater, Oklahoma. Don't forget Texas Roadhouse right here, right now. Hey, everybody. Don't forget right here, right now. We have got a great show tonight. Hey, everybody. Had a great dinner tonight. It's John Myers. Right here, right now. Had a great dinner tonight. So, hey, everybody. So, housekeeping. Had a great dinner tonight. So, alternator. Housekeeping. Housekeeping. 7:30 on Tuesday night. Housekeeping. From the Kicker UnMasked Studios. Housekeeping. Right here, right now. Hey, everybody. So, it's John Myers. Hey, everybody. It's John Myers from the Kicker UnMasked Studios. Hey, everybody. From the Kicker UnMasked Studios. It's John Myers. Right here, right now. We have got a great show tonight. Hey, everybody.
Can you hear me?
We have got a great show tonight. It's John Myers. Hey, everybody. Right here. Hey everybody, it is Tuesday night right here on the Kicker YouTube and Unmasked channel for Kicker Unmasked Live. Hey, I'm back. It's been a long time. I've been traveling, but it's good to be back here in the studios with you guys to have some fun and whip a little audio knowledge on you. We got the usual array of suspects behind me back there. We got Aaron, we got Ernie back there, we got good old JW, and Belfrog. Of course, we can't do anything without good old Belfrog. So we've got a great show for you tonight. We've got Jacob coming on in just a little bit. We're going to have a whole lot of fun. We're going to talk about bridging amplifiers, what it really means, what they do, and how it works. And yes, we've got an amp dyno set up. So as soon as I get over some of that Texas Roadhouse we have, yep, you probably guessed it, Texas Roadhouse again. Thank you, guys. We love it. So stay tuned. Right after the break, we'll have Jacob back out here, and we're going to dig right into it and have a lot of fun. So thanks, guys, for tuning in. Thanks for all your support, and we'll see you here in just a minute.
Kicker Performance Audio. For almost 50 years, we've been rocking the planet with our world-class product covering everything that drives you, whether in your car, truck, boat, motorcycle, side-by-side, or even on your head. Kicker Performance Audio's passion for bringing you your favorite music like you've never heard it before is what drives us. So wherever you need us, Kicker Performance Audio will be there for you.
And we're back live. Thanks for coming back, guys. I've got my partner in crime, Jacob Lucky, in the house. Jacob, where were you last week? I mean, you were gone like all that. Of course, I was too. I was in Louisiana and Indiana and Kentucky, Louisville. Went to Louisville, they make bats. So that was a good trip. Where were you at?
So I was in Toronto in Canada for the CMA Expo, and it was a really great show. Had a lot of fun, and I took some pictures to share with you guys on the show. Actually, Aaron took the pictures, but same thing. Ernie, can you go ahead and pull up my laptop for me?
Let's see what we got. I love doing that show.
He sees my desktop. Cool. Okay.
Hey, I think he's got your desktop pulled up.
There's my cursor. Hang on.
Hey guys, guess what? This is live. These things do happen.
Yep.
So we're gonna give this one more shot, and I mean, I could see it on the screen right there. So
let's try this again.
Duplicate, yeah, that's what we got going on.
Gotcha.
You gotta love the joy of electronics. I think we're both due for new computers, aren't we?
Probably. I know.
I'm getting ready to get a new computer. I don't want a new computer.
I got Ken's old computer, so God knows what he did with this thing.
I actually did a pretty good job with it. But yeah, I hate getting new computers because then you got to figure out all your programs, all your passwords, and get it all transferred over. And
Yep.
But they said, hey, you've got to get a new computer. You have worn this one the heck out. Actually, I did let smoke out of my laptop.
Yeah, you do that a lot, actually. I think you've done that
Not
a couple
lot.
of times.
I did that once. Actually plugged it into what I thought was a telephone jack, but apparently it was powered, and I wondered why there was smoke coming out of the keyboard, but my God, it still works. I don't know what doesn't work anymore, but yeah, they decided it's time for a new laptop, and I hope this one isn't coming out of my paycheck, because
Hopefully
I'd be
not,
owing
man.
them money.
Yeah.
So, cool. Ernie, what do you think? We got some pictures that Jacob can show?
Yeah, let's try it again.
Yeah, we're going to find out. Knuckleheads back there. All right, fired up, Ernie.
I have no pictures on my side.
Nothing
He's got
at all.
nothing. All right, you know what? We're gonna come back to that in just a little bit.
Hang on a second.
Oh, you gotta have fun doing this kind of stuff. Well, hey, if you guys are having fun and you like this, don't forget to hit like and subscribe. Tell your friends about it. And if you guys have any suggestions for shows you want to see, things you want us to blow up, make sure you let us know. And always, once again, thank you, Ashy, Larry, Bobby Burkett, of course, Living Loud with Andy's out there. We've got a bunch of great guys. Mike Craner, Mike, your pedestal's looking great. Can't wait to see it. Stu, that was a great install that you sent pictures of this week. Thank you guys for supporting us, and thanks for sending us some good stuff we can put up on the show tonight to show everybody. And once again, if you guys got questions or suggestions, look at this. I mean, he comes from out of nowhere.
There.
And the computer guru up here.
How's that gum tasting to you?
How does it smell?
Guys, this guy's
good
eating
Lord.
gum on. What am I going to do with this guy?
Oh, yeah, they could probably hear that, can't they?
Hey, you can probably tell this isn't pre-scripted.
Extend. We're going
Because
to.
we really don't want to see
Thought I did
Ernie
that.
up here. We usually try to keep him back there.
Yeah. Well, you blew it tonight. Okay.
Oh, we're going to have even more fun when I get to do my fun thing
Yeah.
tonight. Yes, we're going to have a lot of
Well,
fun.
if this doesn't work,
All right,
worst
I'm going to
case,
give it one more shot.
worst case, I'll email it to John and use his computer because we know his works. So,
Hey, that's an idea.
Yeah.
Well, mine doesn't work without that cable plugged in, but
well,
we can always move the cable.
all right,
We're
okay.
good to go.
We're good.
All right,
So let's get this
Jacob,
pulled
hit
up.
it.
Yeah, so first thing we got
looks like
there.
you.
That's me, yep. And then standing next to me is,
What is that?
some random guy with the Eddie Bauer jacket on. But so first thing we did when we got to Canada is we had a couple hours before we had to get into the swing of things. So we started walking through downtown Toronto, and I saw this thing and pointed it out to Aaron and said, why the heck do they still have a payphone set up outside? So walked up and got a picture of it, thought it was kind of cool.
Does it actually work?
I don't know, I didn't test it.
Oh, well, actually, downtown Toronto is actually really gorgeous. So.
It is beautiful.
Yeah, it's almost like a third world country up there. Wait a minute, it is a third. No, never mind. And don't forget, you guys from Canada, we start talking about our giveaways, which we're going to do in just a second. You guys can register for those too, because we do have a deal with our good friends up at Gem Summit Canada. So you guys can register to win our prizes as well.
Yep, and so as we were walking down the street, we found a antique mall on the side of the road, which I thought would be kind of cool because a lot of buildings in this town were built in the late 1800s. I figure it's an old city. There could be some cool stuff in the antique mall. So we go inside, and it looks like what you see here behind me, except on all of the walls. This place is just packed with stuff. There's too much stuff in there to process, but I found a Che Guevara belt buckle and showed Aaron, and he took a picture of it without me knowing.
I don't even know what that means.
He was a communist revolutionary in Cuba.
No wonder I don't know what that means.
But just thought it was interesting. And then we get to the show floor, and if you guys know me, you know I'm a gearhead. This is Mike from Jimson's pickup truck he called Rusty. And what surprised me when he first fired up this truck is that it wasn't loud. He kept the original inline-6 engine in the truck, and in the back he had a full airbag setup inside a Kicker sound system. But here I am reaching into the engine bay to connect his charging wires to his starter posts.
I thought maybe you were asking it to cough.
No, I think it was a woman truck, John.
Did he ever tell you the story on that truck?
No.
Just so you know, it's actually an interesting story because good old Mike O'Connor up in Canada from Gemsen. Mike's wonderful, and he's an avid car nut. I mean, he's also a Mustang guy, too. So Mike called me up, says, hey, I want you to go look at this truck in Tulsa for me. Go drive it and see what you think. So I'm like, sure, you know, it's only an hour away. So I went up to Tulsa, drove this truck around for about an hour, called him up and said, hey, you know, actually, it's a really nice truck. I really like it. So Mikey bought it, shipped it to Canada. So that truck is actually from Tulsa, Oklahoma. I don't know who actually built it. I don't remember the whole backstory on it, but what a gorgeous truck. You know, it's got the patina on it. It's just, I love those old trucks, and so does Mike. So.
I knew it had to be from somewhere that wasn't Canada because it wasn't rusted.
Rusty?
Yeah, rust. I mean, it's rusty, but it wasn't rusted out like all of the other. I mean, you'd see brand new cars from 2010 that had rust holes in their fenders or wheel wells. Anyway.
Next picture.
Next picture. This was pretty cool. This is actually a smart car that one of the guys, I believe his name was Andrew, at the CMA Expo, and he powered it up and let us listen to it. So he's got 6 Kicker KM speakers in each door, 5 KM speakers in the rear, and 3 KM subwoofers. I believe those are 10s. But it was just amazing because he's powering this whole sound system off of 1,500 watts RMS in a smart car on the factory charging system.
Wow.
So what he does is he takes and he drives this thing to the boat dock and sets it up and plays music loudly and lets people with boats listen to it. And that's how he advertises his sales. He says, we can get you something like this in a boat. And there's Andrew with the car. It's kind of a cool little smart car, actually. I wouldn't mind driving it around.
They actually are pretty comfortable inside. You do have a fair amount of room on the driver's side, too. Is that real snow or is that fake snow?
That's real snow. It was snowing on and off when we got up there, but it was just warm enough that most of it was rain. And here's a picture of me doing my training at CMA Expo. We were talking about modern vehicle integration. And here I was telling the guys about the horrors of the 2021 Cadillac Escalade with the AKG system.
Those things are crazy. If you guys haven't seen those, 3 amplifiers, 38 channels, 36 speakers and like 32 channels. Yeah, they're crazy. Don't mess with those.
Yeah, and here is Andrew with the smart car in my training, which I thought was pretty cool.
Is he sleeping?
No, he looks like he's stressed out thinking about it.
Num.
Yeah.
There's a good old truck.
Yeah, here's a side picture of Rusty. He's got white wall tires on it, and I wish Aaron had a picture of the bed. Maybe he does, but you can see the whole bag system. Here are the Kicker KS 6 3/4 coaxials in the door, and then he's got the 6 3/4 inch woofers. And I think he said he had a couple of Comp 10s under the seat. What was interesting was he kept the factory gas tank location behind the seat, which most of the guys will take that out, build something in the trunk like a fuel cell and put subwoofers behind it, but he opted to put the subs under the seat and keep the factory fuel tank location. Here's another close-up of the door with that beautiful upholstery work. And here is a Kubota tractor that was in the Kenwood booth.
Really?
Now, this was a super, super cool thing because when I first got to the show, this tractor was sitting in a corner in the showroom floor, and I was like, why is there a tractor here? I thought
That's Canada.
Yeah, I thought they must be using it to move, pallets around or something because it was, pull cars in or something. So I go do my training, and when I come back, the tractor's sitting in the Kenwood booth. So naturally, I had to walk up and look and see what was going on. So they had 4 6.5-inch speakers in the roof with a Kenwood radio and a subwoofer attached to the back of the seat. So there's a little hutch back there that you can put your papers and like a clipboard or something in, and they took that out and then put their version of our Hideaway and attached it to the back seat. And this thing actually throttled. It was really loud and it sounded good.
It looks like my buddy Scott Caswell from Kenwood in the back.
And here we have our breakfast. Well, this was Aaron's breakfast. He got the
Bird's eggs
on a donut from Tim Hortons, and I think I got like a chocolate chip muffin or something. But if you guys don't know, Tim Hortons is like Starbucks of Canada, but half as expensive.
Like Starbucks meets Dunkin' Donuts.
I think. It was way cheaper and really pretty good.
Yeah,
kind of
everything
jealous.
for us is cheaper in Canada. It's just more expensive for them when they come down here.
Yeah.
Wow.
And this is a Jeep Gladiator that they had in the JL audio booth. And it was a really clean, gnarly looking Jeep Gladiator.
Angry.
Generally, I don't like these cars. I think they look weird, but this one I would actually drive. Here's the back side of it. They got some colored bed liner in, and again, it's got airbags. Seem to be the theme for several vehicles here at the show. Here's a cool motorcycle. I don't know very many details about it. Aaron took this picture, but it looks awesome. And it looks like it's got some speakers in the back and some subwoofers.
I like the satin finish in the blue.
Yeah, it
Kinda
goes
partial to the blue.
Goes really well together. Yeah, I wonder why. And then this is another bike that we saw that was just really, really cool looking. I love the giant wheel on the front, and
it's like a big gyroscope.
Yeah, it sits nice and looks cool.
Yeah, that satin finish is really popular the last several years, and I kind of like it, especially if you mix in a little bit of paint or a little bit of polish.
Yeah.
Just to break it up just a little bit, but great detail on all these vehicles.
And I think if you guys look, I think that might be Dean back there from 5 Star.
Oh, but Dean was there, huh?
Yeah, Dean was there.
I didn't think they let him out of the country.
I didn't see Fernando there, but I definitely saw Dean.
Do they go anywhere without each other?
I don't know.
Love those guys. They are awesome.
But anyway, it was an awesome show. That's all the pictures I've got to share. I think it was the first year that they put the show on, and it was really well organized, and the venue was really nice. So I'm excited to see how it comes along for the next couple of years. I want to shout out Jimson for having us represent them in the booth, and Ben Wu and all of his CMA guys for doing such a great show.
Yep, Ben always does a good job, and of course so do the guys at Jemson. They're one of our very, very important distributors. So, hey, well, I get the special cable now. As always, if you guys do remember, we haven't mentioned it yet, but if you guys are new to the show, we like to give stuff away. Always, every show we give something away. Tonight is going to be no different. Ernie, if you want to go ahead and pull up the page that tells them how to register, it's kicker.com/umweekly.
How to what?
How to register to win the free prizes. I can't breathe. I'm medicated from this damn sinus infection, and I can't even think what I'm doing anymore. So. All right. So what you're going to do is you're going to go to kicker/umweekly, and there you can register to win tonight's prizes. And as always, we're going to give away 3 different groups of prizes. We're going to give away a Kicker UnMasked Weekly T-shirt with the Kicker koozie and the EB400, the weather-resistant Bluetooth earbuds. We're going to give away a set of the Kicker Tabor headphones, which are the over-the-ear Bluetooth headphones with the Kicker koozie and the Kicker T-shirt. And the grand prize winner tonight is also going to get a Kicker T-shirt and a Kicker koozie. What else are they going to get? A bullfrog.
Bullfrog.
How about a bullfrog? If you guys don't know what those are, that's that little Bluetooth speaker that we sell that fits in a cup holder, is completely waterproof. Those are actually kind of fun. You actually throw them in the pond, the lake, or the pool, and watch them roll around and make bubbles.
We need to add one to the fish tank.
Yeah, we could do that. We could actually have that floating in there with the Power Sports amplifier. How long has that thing been in the fish tank? 5 months?
4 or 5 months now, yeah.
It's been crazy. So do we recommend you leave your amplifier in the fish tank for 5 months? Probably not, but once again, we do. So tune in at the end of the show tonight. We'll announce who the winners are of the 3 grand prizes. And, I suppose we'll give away more stuff again next time we're on the show, which will be in 2 weeks.
As always.
So cool. Well, let's get down to it. I think that pretty much covers everything other than events. We got a few cool events coming up. What's coming up in your calendar for events? Anything exciting?
I don't have anything in April so far, but in May I'm going to a couple of events put on by one of our guys in Colorado, and I'm going to Kansas City, and then I'm going to Denver. And then later on in May, actually I think the date got moved to June now, but I'm going to the Big Five trade show in Los Angeles.
I see a lot of videos by those guys. Those guys do a great job.
And then I'll be down there for a couple days, visiting some shops and hanging out with our rep, Randy Bowen. So,
Randy's awesome. Randy's one of my favorite reps to travel with.
what about you, John? What do you
Well,
got?
we've got a bunch of stuff going on. I mean, not just me in general. I'll be going up to the Go Fast show here about April 10th. And that'll be a fun, that's more of a trade style event, so it's not open to the public, so that's nothing you need to watch for. But we do have Desert Storm coming up April 19th. And I think, are you going to Desert Storm or is it Carlos?
I think it's Carlos.
Carlos. And I went to that last year. If you guys have never been to Desert Storm and don't know what it is, it's not a war. Well, actually, I think it is a war who can spend the most money on their toys. It is absolutely crazy. If you guys go back and watch the show, you know, from a year ago when I came back and showed a bunch of pictures, I mean, some of these like displays these people had. I mean, they've got their $40 million boat, you know, pulled by their $2 million, you know, sport chassis, and followed by their $25 million helicopter, everything all painted match. I mean, it really is, if you want to see, you know, just unbelievable budgets and what people can do with money, it's really a lot of fun. I mean, some absolutely incredible boats, some great UTVs, ATVs, and, you know, a lot of, you know, poker run out of the water, which is always fun. So if you guys get a chance, you don't mind going to Lake Havasu in April, and that's going to be April 19th through the 27th, go check out Desert Storm. Another interesting thing going on, kind of outside of events, but if you guys are really into audio, high-end audio, our good buddy Mark Eldridge right here in Tulsa is doing another one of his schools, and I think Ernie's got something to post up on that. He's going to be doing that show from April 22nd and 23rd. But if you guys really like high-end home, you really want to learn about sound quality and image and the staging, and Ernie, you're failing me up there. All right, well, sooner or later, Ernie will get those pictures to put up that tell you basically more about Mark Eldridge's little school. And if you guys have heard about it, you know it's awesome. If you haven't, check it out. It really is. There we are. That's where you can actually go listen to a NASCAR. That is an actual NASCAR that's been converted to be street legal, and it's got an absolutely unbelievable audio system in it. And Mark will go through to teach you all about tuning, imaging, you know, comb filtering, you know, time alignment, you know, equalization, everything you wanted to know about audio. So it really is a really good high-end school. It's not for the novice or the faint of heart. It's actually very involved and very, very technical, but if you guys really want to be on top of the game in car audio, that's one of the few places in the world you can go get that type of schooling. So that's absolutely, you know, something you must do if you have a chance and can swing it. And we can't forget Slamology, that's coming up.
Oh, yeah.
That's going to be coming up in June, so that's a little farther out.
You going to that one?
Yes, I'm going again. I went last year for the first time, and it was crazy. I actually met some, you know, absolutely wonderful people up there, and got to see things that I never dreamed I would see, or hear. It's crazy. But if you guys want to go see pretty much the Mad Max of car audio, you know, events, the Slamology is it. I mean, these vehicles are absolutely just insane. The stuff that they do to them and how loud they get, and it's really unique to see all the creativity and all the different ideas that people have and all the, you know, different mixes and matches and theories. But it's a lot of fun. It's just a really neat event for, you know, all the car audio people to get together and hang out. And I'm trying to talk Irby into going.
Steve.
Yep, we actually might get Steve to go. The only problem is it's Becky's birthday that weekend. So yeah, it's like you want to, you know, wife's birthday or go to a car audio event. So, but he's trying to work it out. So
We can get her a demo for her birthday.
I told him, I said, bring her along. And Steve's like, I don't think that would be her ideal birthday. But so, all right. So on to the meat and potatoes of tonight. This is what you guys have tuned in for. So bridging on amplifiers. Why do you bridge amplifiers, and what is bridging of amplifiers? First of all, we need to clarify there's two different terms. Sometimes people get them interchanged. There is strapping and there is bridging. So strapping is when you take two amplifiers and basically make them work as one, you know, massive amplifier. And bridging is when you take a multi-channel amplifier, such as a 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 channel, 8 channel, whatever, and you group multiple channels together in groups of 2. You can only group, you know, a pair together. But you could take an 8-channel amplifier and turn it into a 4-channel amplifier. Mm-hmm. What would be the advantage of doing that? I mean, you're cutting down the channels. Is there an advantage, Jacob?
Oh, yeah. The first one that I can think of is you're going to get more power out of the amplifier. That's the main reason I think people bridge amplifiers.
Yeah, and it is. In fact, you know, I'm all about power. You know, I say this almost every show. I'm all about big power, you know, overpower, you know, big enclosures. But when it comes to doing, really high-end audio systems, and I've said this many times as well, I'm, front stage. I'm not much for rear. I don't play rear speakers at all. So, we've actually got great amplifiers. I mean, we got 5-channel amplifiers that, I like to use them as 3-channel amplifiers. So I'll take a 5-channel amplifiers like the 660.5 and I'll convert it into a 3-channel. So I actually take amp 1 left and right, bridge them together to run the left front speaker. Take amp 2 left and right, bridge them together to run the right front speaker. So why would I do that? Why would I take a 4-channel amplifier and why would I, convert it into a 2-channel or 5-channel, make it into a 3-channel? It's all about getting more power, and by combining the channels together on the amplifier, you're going to get more power. But people say, what about the rear channels? I got to have my rear fill. Well, if you really still have to have the rear speakers, without amplification, just go ahead and upgrade the speakers themselves and run them off stock power. I mean, they're basically mostly there for the people in the back. But people ask all the time, what about the rear fill? What about, surround sound? Well, surround sound's a little bit different. With surround sound, a true surround sound system, you have dedicated rear channels. So when I did audio way back when we first started doing home theater, Jurassic Park was one of the movies that was really popular. So you do a home theater system for someone, and show them, the movies. They're like, this is great. They listen to the surround sound. They love it. About a week later, they call you back. My surround sound system doesn't work anymore. What do you mean it doesn't work? Well, I don't hear the dinosaur behind me. Well, is it on the screen? Well, yeah, then you shouldn't hear it behind you. So when you go to a concert, your performers are in front of you. They're not in front of you and behind you. So that's why I like to take like the 5-channel amplifiers and turn them into a 3-channel amplifier, because you get a lot more power to the front and you still get the same amount of power to the sub. But there's times you might not want to bridge the 5-channel amplifier, such as you're doing a active 2-way system in the front. You have a set of components. You're going to take the passive crossover out, and you're going to have a tweeter and a mid section, so you can actively cross those over and set the levels independently between both of them. That would be one area where you wouldn't want to bridge it, and the other area would be for time alignment. So if you're going to bridge that into 3-channel, you just have basically left and right in front. You can't do time alignment. So if you have a speaker in the door and one in the dash, they're different distances away from you. The time alignment's going to be different. You cannot basically adjust that, electrically without having separate channels of amplification. So there are definitely times to bridge amplifiers, and there are times when you might not want to bridge amplifiers. But we're going to talk about the times when you do, and the whole thing about getting more power out of the amplifier. But what is bridging? What does it really mean? And what we're doing is we're basically taking the left and right outputs of an amplifier, we're combining them together, and you're basically going to have a push-pull application. So the left channel becomes the push, the right channel becomes the pull, and then on the next waveform they actually swap. So you're using both channels of the amplifier to basically drive the swing of the speaker, the inward and the outward motion. So it gets kind of interesting, and this is where Ernie's going to really start to cringe and bite his teeth. But we've got to talk about, power-wise and what it does. And everyone talks about, hey, I got my amplifier bridged and it's seeing a 1 ohm load. Well, what speaker do you have hooked up to it? Well, I got a 4 ohm speaker hooked up to it. Well, no, it's seeing a 4 ohm load. No, I got it bridged. It's seeing a 1 ohm load. So you used to go through these arguments all the time. So I kind of want to set the record straight to show you exactly what happens electrically with an amplifier when you bridge it. Because there really is no magical power, but there's a way it's going to almost seem like there is. So it gets really cool. So I'm going to actually step up, and I'm going to go over here to what we call our wonderful whiteboard. We're not going to try to do this with the little pad again, because there's going to be a whole lot of moving around. So Ernie, if you can switch cameras for me.
Professor John.
Well, got your way, didn't you, John?
Yes, he sure did. So I'm actually going to slide this just a little farther.
No, you're not. You're going to slide the other way. Oh, come on.
Ernie doesn't like it when I move things around. So here's what happens. We're going to start talking about a 2-channel amplifier in general. So with an amplifier on the end, you have speaker terminals. You've got a plus terminal and a minus terminal for the left. You have a plus terminal and a minus terminal for the right. So what we mean when we bridge an amplifier is we're going to take these and we're going to tie them together. But what really happens behind the scenes with an amplifier? So normally, let's say this amplifier does 50 watts by 2 at 4 ohms. And this amplifier is stable to 2 ohms, so it should do 100 watts by 2 at 2 ohms. So we're just going to say this is a stereo amplifier. It's
That way. Push it that way. The whole thing.
there we go. Side the speaker's kind of in the way, but that's all right. We probably won't use that bottom corner. So here we have the output terminals of the amplifier, and if we take a 4 ohm speaker and we connect the 4 ohm speaker, you've got a plus and a minus terminal, so we're basically going to connect a 4 ohm speaker and another 4 ohm speaker with your plus and minus terminals. Everything's great. So that means right now each of those speakers is getting 50 watts. So it's satisfying that top line up here. So now let's go say we got a different speaker. We're going to hook up a 2 ohm speaker to this. Let's go ahead and get our speaker here. Now it's a 2 ohm speaker, and you've got another speaker here, and it's also a 2 ohm, plus, minus, plus, minus. So now when I connect it here, I have a 2 ohm load, so this is 100 watts, and you got 100 watts. So does that kind of make sense? So that's how it works. As you drop the impedance, you get more power. That's in the stereo mode, and this is going to continue to work the same way when you bridge the amplifier. But what gets really interesting, and I actually have some pictures to show you this, these two terminals right here, the left minus and the right plus, they are the same electrical connection. There is no difference. I mean, these two are basically tied together. Ernie, can you pull up the picture I gave you a little bit ago that shows the amp 1 left minus and right positive? So what I've done is I've taken the amplifier that we're going to show you here in just a minute, and I've basically taken an ohm meter and I measure between the right, or the left negative and the right positive. So you can see the center two terminals. So with an ohm meter, those two are a dead short. So those two terminals are basically interchangeable. It does not matter. You can use one terminal or the other one, but that is the same electrical connection. And if you go to the next picture, amp 2 left and right, the same thing happens with the next tier down below, which is the amp 2 output. The left negative and right positive are also tied together. And it should go without saying, but we'll say it anyway. All 4 center terminals on that power block, all 4 of those are common to chassis ground. So they are all tied together. So that's kind of how we're going to make this bridged amplifier work. Because what we're going to do is we're going to assume these two are together. So let's take a 4 ohm speaker, and we're going to bridge the amplifier at 4 ohms. So if we have a 4 ohm speaker, it could basically be represented by a 4 ohm resistor. Kind of the same thing, right? A speaker basically is very similar to a resistor, but a speaker is an active load, not a passive load. A speaker will actually have some of its own reactance with the power coming in, so it does change it just a little bit, but for the most part, it works like a 4 ohm load. So we could take this 4 ohm load, take this 4 ohm resistor. It's the same thing as taking a pair of 2 ohms. So would you guys agree that all 3 of these scenarios are pretty much the same thing? Right, Jacob?
Yeah, except for speakers reactive, but we're not talking
exactly.
about that yet.
So you got a pair of 2 ohm resistors in series. It's the same thing as a 4 ohm resistor, which is the same thing basically as a 4 ohm load. Well, as I mentioned, with these 2 center terminals, they are tied together. So if you take this lead and connect to here, now you can see how 4 ohms mono works exactly the way the 2 ohm stereo does. The amplifier does not care which is which. It works exactly the same way. So if this amplifier, we're going to say up here, it should do 200 watts by 1 at 4 ohms, which is exactly what it does. So we got 200 watts here, which means each channel is going to do 100 watts. 100 watts and 100 watts gives you the 200 watts. 2 ohms and 2 ohms gives you the 4 ohms. So you can see how the amplifier, if you bridge an amplifier, the total impedance is always double what the stereo impedance is. So hopefully that makes sense, and that's where the power comes from. So why would we want to bridge something? Why would we want to get more power? Well, let's look at a 4-channel amplifier, and then we're going to come back to this.
John, before you move on, I just want to point out too that this is why we can only bridge our stereo amplifiers at a 4 ohm load, because like John said, each channel is seeing a 2 ohm resistance. It's seeing 1/2 the resistance of whatever load you pick it up to. So if you tried to bridge that amplifier with the 2 ohm load, each channel would be seeing 1 ohm, basically. And that amplifier is only stable down to 2 ohms. So it's going to go into protection mode, basically, if you try and bridge it with a 2 ohm load.
So if we have an amplifier that's going to produce 50 watts by 4 at 4 ohms, it should do 100 watts by 4 at 2 ohms. So when we bridge it, that means we should pretty much be able to add this together to get 200 watts by 2 at 4 ohms. So why does this make a difference? So take this scenario here. Let's use our KXA 400.4. It's 50 watts per channel at 4 ohms, which is why I use this. So if I connect this to a set of components and I take the passive crossover out, I get 50 watts to each tweeter, I get 50 watts to each mid-range. And of course, you're going to use the active crossover in the amplifier. But when you do that, you've taken away the passive crossover, you've taken away possibly 2 things. One thing for sure is the tweeter protection. The second one might be what we call Zobel impedance compensation, which will actually smooth out the frequency response. So when you take the passive crossover out, you lose some of that protection and some of that circuitry that's there to smooth out the response of the tweeter and make it more natural sounding. When we go down here and we bridge this, we get the same power. We're still at 4 ohm load, but we're going to leave the passive crossovers in this time. So now I'm getting 200 watts to each of the speakers. That doesn't make sense, does it, Jacob? 200 watts to each of the speakers, that should be 800 watts then, right? Not 400 altogether? Well, it's really kind of interesting the way it works. And with the passive crossovers, what the passive crossovers are going to do is they're going to divide that frequency range up. So you're still going to get the 200 watts each tweeter. You're going to get 200 watts each of the mid-ranges. You're getting 4 times the power with the same amplifier and the same speakers, not by going and leaving it in the 4-channel mode. Now, if you need to do time alignment or you want to do active crossovers, obviously you got to stick in the 4-channel mode. But if you're going to have a set of high-end coaxes or high-end components where the tweeters and mids are close together, you can bridge that so you literally get 4 times the power each speaker, which means more headroom, more clarity, more louder, which is more gooder, right, Jacob?
Absolutely.
So how does that work? How do you get 200 watts to each speaker, the mid-range and the tweeter? So let's just look at the frequency band with the passive crossover. So you got the mid-range, and you got the tweeter output. What the passive crossover does is it actually adds resistance. So in the mid-range, as you go higher in frequency, it adds more resistance. And as the tweeter goes lower in frequency, it adds more this way. So you get what you call a crossover point. You get a little bit of an area where there's also a dip. So by using the passive crossover, if you have this set up down here with a minus 6 dB setup, you're going to get an average flat response because at this point you're doubling the power and you're doubling the speakers playing the same frequency. So with the minus 6 dB, you actually get a flat frequency response if the crossover point is down 6 dB. And that's a Linkwitz-Riley crossover. Now, when we get into a Butterworth crossover, it's still very similar, but it's going to be at a higher frequency. It's at minus 3. So now I'm going to get a 3 dB peak. So what that means is that's how a passive crossover works, the difference between Linkwitz-Riley and a Butterworth crossover. But more importantly, how do we get 200 watts to each of these speakers by doing that? And the way it works is you got 200 watts going to the mid-range at this frequency range, and you'll have 200 watts going to the tweeter at this frequency range. So while each one is getting the 200 watts, they don't really overlap. And of course, the power is going to go down as you go up or lower frequency, depending if it's mid-range or a tweeter. So that's really how the passive crossovers allow you to run incredible amounts of power out of those speakers without losing power and about having to go to the 4-channel mode. So depending on your application, if you just got good 2-channel setup up front, you got a 4-channel amp, bridge it all the time. Most car audio amplifiers today are rated at maximum power at 2 ohm stereo. It's just one of the power ratings, that's the way we do it. Now, when you get into like our power sports amplifiers that we have in the tank up here, we're rating those amplifiers at 4 ohms. So the 100 or 400.4 does 100 watts per channel at 4 ohms. So we're trying to push the industry back into that 4 ohm rating because how many coaxes are 4 ohms?
Most of them.
Yeah, how many are 2 ohms?
Almost
none.
Yeah,
I mean,
almost
our
none.
power sport speakers are, but that's a different application. So this is why it gets really important to understand how the bridging works and what the amplifier is going to see as far as output power. So let's go back and look at it one more time, just kind of give you a refresher. So let's take the 4 ohm speaker, and we're going to connect it to this amplifier, which this was the 404, so it's doing 50 watts by 4 at 4 ohms. But once again, it should do 100 watts by 2 by 4 at 2 ohms. And then if you bridge it, it's actually going to do 200 watts by 2 at 4 ohms. So once again, I can get 4 times the power of the number of speakers. So 4 ohm speaker, equivalent to the 4 ohm resistor, which is equivalent to 2 ohms in series. Let's go ahead and break that connection. And of course, we're not going to connect all this in parallel. So now you can see how that 4 ohms mono is exactly the same as 2 ohm stereo, because these two terminals are identical. They're actually tied together in the amplifier. So that's what happens when you bridge amplifiers. Strapping is a little bit different. So how does this actually work? Why do we get these 2 channels here, and why does it give you more output? So if we take this amplifier that's got a sine wave coming in on this channel and a sine wave coming in on this channel, they're referenced to ground. So what we're going to do is, you would think that these two would just pretty much cancel each other out, but we send this through an inverter before it goes out the speaker lead when you bridge it. So we bridge that, we're basically taking this and we're taking this, and we're going to sum them together to give us that greater swing versus the swing we had before. So it's pretty interesting the way it works. But for those of you that have always wondered how the amplifier works, why does the impedance always double when it's bridged versus stereo, and what does the amplifier technically see? Well, technically right now the amplifier is seeing 2 ohm stereo or 4 ohms mono. It depends, and it doesn't matter what the speaker is. I mean, if you put an 8 ohm speaker on this, you're basically going to have an 8 ohm mono or a 4 ohm stereo load. So it's always a factor of half or double depending which way you're looking at it. So hopefully that answers some questions about bridging. JW, do we got any good questions up there? Anybody posted anything that we need to cover? And guys, feel free absolutely in the chat group to punch them. Kicker. Does Kicker have any new AB amplifiers available at all? Yes, we do.
Yeah, our CXA 360.4 is Class AB.
And that's the amplifier we're actually going to use up here. The Power Sports amplifiers, the 100.4.
The 400.1?
400.4.
Sorry, 400.4.
Yep. So almost all of our full range amplifiers are Class AB, with the exception of the KXMA, our marine amplifiers. Mm-hmm. Those are full range Class D.
And then most of our mono amps are also going to be Class D because of higher efficiency at higher power levels.
And that's something we've talked about in other episodes, but we can talk more about Class D in a future episode, the different types of power supplies and why they are and what they do. So,
I see Drew said in the comments, class doesn't matter these days.
I have no class. We all knew that, though.
It doesn't. He's right. For the most part,
I'm right, I have no
because
class.
Where technology is at, Class D amplifiers are practically just as good as Class AB amplifiers. 30 years ago, you might have been able to hear audible difference between a Class AB and a Class D amplifier.
There was no might. You definitely could.
These days, there's really not that audible of a difference. I mean, somebody with a golden ear might tell you they can hear a difference. I can't hear a difference myself.
Yeah, a good designed, well-built Class D amplifier will sound every bit as good as a Class AB, or even as good as a Class A amplifier, like the old tube amps.
Our IQ amplifiers had Class D, or 4 channels were Class D, weren't they?
Yeah, they were. And the same thing with the KXMA.
Yeah.
The 400.4 KXMA and the 905, the high pass signals on those are all Class A. Well, sorry, those are Class D, but the 360 or the 660.5, the 4 channels, the 55 watts by 4, that's Class AB, and the subsection is Class D. But the reason we do that is Class D only makes sense if you're going to do a very powerful amplifier. You need something that's really efficient and small. So that's why we do that. So hopefully Ernie hasn't panicked too much about my board, but I think now what we need to do is we need to actually put this all on the amp dyno and see what's going on. So I'm going to go ahead and back this out of the way a little bit. So, Jacob, what do you think? You want to like dyno some amplifiers?
Yeah, always.
All right. So what we've got up here, we've got the good old Steve Me Designs amp dyno. We have a CXA 360.4, and we're going to run this amplifier in 4 ohm stereo, 2 ohm stereo, and then we're also going to bridge it. So we're going to give you a couple different ways that you can see how the power goes. And Ernie, I think we've got a camera. Am I blocking the camera? I better make sure I get mine.
You are the camera right now, John.
I'm always the camera. So let's go ahead and set this up. And I suppose I better get my reading glasses on because I need to see exactly what's going on.
You set them on the board on whatever PCB that is.
There it is back there. So, something else, I guess, before we do this, I guess I almost forgot to mention, why do we have a CXA 400.4 up here? The CXA 400.4, people sometimes get confused and they think this is a 2-channel amplifier. All of the CXA, the 401, the 801, 1201, and the 1801, they are mono amplifiers. There's only 1 channel, but there's actually a terminal block that has 4 screws on it. So Ernie, would you pull up that picture real quick I sent you that shows the end panel of this 404? So this has been kind of confusing, and we've had some warranty issues and some tech calls. If you look at the end of this amplifier, you see the 4 speaker screws, and you see both left-hand screws are labeled positive, both right-hand screws are labeled negative. So this is a mono amplifier. It's just got 2 terminals for positive and 2 for negative. Don't make the mistake of trying to hook it up positive, negative, positive, negative. I've actually come across a couple shops that have done that, and they've had some issues like, hey, it doesn't work at all, no output. Well, that's because you don't have the speakers connected right. You basically have 1 speaker connected to the positive outputs and 1 connected to the negative outputs. So that's why I've got this up here, and that's why I wanted to show you how those terminals work. It is a mono amplifier, but there are 4 terminals, whether it's a terminal block or the barrier strip. Just make sure you read the ends. Now, all the kicker amplifiers, I mean, way back from day 1, to bridge any kicker amplifier, it's the left positive and right negative, the outer 2 speaker terminals, and just ignore the center 2. So any kicker amplifier that's ever been made, it's always the outer 2 speaker terminals. Back, when I first started doing audio, to bridge an amplifier, you actually had to have a bridging module. So what that bridging module would do, and I'm going to use the brand Orion because those were the most popular, and that's the brand I dealt with. So to bridge that amplifier, you actually had to plug a module into the amplifier, which would basically invert 1 channel and then tie the 2 center connections together. So it did it externally. Now we actually go ahead and do that internally. Then we put a inverter on the output of the right channel to bring it back in polarity. So you don't have to worry about the left and right speakers being out of polarity, even though they're both referenced to that ground center pin off the center of the terminal blocks. So let's go ahead and run some dyno numbers here. So what I've got is we've got the 360.4. It's powered up. So I'm going to go back here and let's go ahead and reset the dyno. Go clear back to the beginning. And I know Derek's probably cringing out there. He's like, this should be a lot easier to operate than what you're showing. So we're going to go to 4 ohms. So you're going to have 4 ohm load. We're going to hit enter. And we're going to go ahead and says, yes, we want to start the dyno. So let's go back and reset. We didn't go all the way back. Come on. We got to wait for it to do its thing. All right, there we are. Okay. So what we're going to do is we're going to set this to 4 ohms, hit enter, and it's going to certified track. Oh, I see where we're at now. That's why we're in the wrong mode. We need to go back. I want to do a certified run. Don't you love it when things argue? All right, back. Ernie's back there giggling to himself. I love it when that happens. All right. So 4 ohm load. We'll go ahead and leave it there. All right. So we want to use track 4 or 9. So we're going to go up here to track 4. And we hit start dyno. Am I in the way? So we're going to see it run. We're going to see what this is going to do. A certified dyno run at 4 ohms. Stereo. Basically 1 channel driven only. So if you guys can see up here, we've got 75 watts. We do rate that amplifier at how much power, Jacob?
I think it's 65 at 4
65. So we're doing about 10 watts more than we did before. So now let's go ahead and run that at 2 ohms. Let's see how much power we get at 2 ohms. So let's go back. Set it at 2 ohms. Go back to track 4, hit start. There she goes. We got signal. How much power do you think, Jacob? At 2 ohms.
I'm going to say
stereo.
120.
120? 112. So not too bad. So that's the difference between the 4 ohm stereo and the 2 ohm stereo. What we want to do now is we want to bridge those 2 channels. We're going to take left and right and bridge them together. So Jacob, would you go ahead and connect the amplifier bridged on the back?
I gotcha.
And we're going to run this same exact test, but now we're going to run it mono. So we're going to run signal into the left and right, as you can see, for amp 1, and we're just going to measure the bridged amp 1 output, which is where we're going to use the left positive and right negative. So he's going to connect the wire up and make it all tight.
There we go.
So we're going to go back, and we got to do this at 4 ohms, right? We can't do 2 ohms bridged.
That's exactly right.
So, yep, we don't want to make smoke. I know you guys want to see smoke, and you never know, we might see it.
I mean, we could try it, but we don't want to do it before we finish what we're doing.
Yep, we'll do that later, just to see if we can burn anything up. So, all right, we got 4 ohms on the selector. We're going to hit enter. We want to go to track 4, start the dyno. How much power do you think it's going to do, Jacob?
I'm going to say 180.
See what it does. We're at 100, 120, 100, 213 watts.
Wow.
So we did 75 per channel at 4 ohm stereo. At 4 ohms bridged, we're getting 213 watts of power. So that's the difference between bridging it and running it stereo, is you get a lot more power, and the amplifier is not working any harder. It's just combining the power outputs of the 2 channels. Rather than both channels, tracking like this, we're going to take one and we're going to actually get an increased output from the top and bottoms of those waveforms. So that gives us more output. Next thing I want to show you guys is what happens if you don't run signals into both channels. What if I don't have signal driven into the left or the right? So let's show you what that does. I'm going to take the RCA input from the right input. I'm going to disconnect it. So this would be if you're going to run your left into amp 1, your right into amp 2. Do I have to run a Y adapter and run signal into the other RCA? So let's go ahead and go back. We're going to do this at the 4 ohm load again. How much power are you thinking this time, Jacob?
I think we're probably going to get closer to...
I'm going to say probably that 75 watts,
Yeah,
but let's see what happens,
watts,
because we're only driving one channel now.
One channel at 4 ohms, technically.
Guess what? It did 70 watts.
Yeah.
So we didn't get the full output because we're not driving both channels. You don't have the one channel driven without the other one to give you that higher swing. So that's why it's very important when you bridge an amplifier, you want to run the same signal. Do not run a stereo signal into the left and the right and bridge it. I mean, it's going to combine it, but you're not going to get the best performance out of it. It's like anything else. You can put crappy tires in a car and it drives, but you don't get the performance.
Well, you're summing imperfect signal, or
Yeah.
you're summing to an imperfect signal, so you're not going to get the full power
Perfect
output.
signal output.
Yeah.
So it's very important to make sure actually, don't we have a Y adapter up here?
We did. We just used it.
We used it somewhere. Here's one right here. So let's just go ahead and show you. Let's go ahead and leave that one disconnected. This is a unique Y adapter. I've never seen one that has 3 outputs
That'd
before.
be a W adapter?
Something like that. So now I'm just going to run the left input into both the left and right channels of the amplifier. How much power are you thinking, Jacob?
I think we're going to get bridge power again, John.
I pretty much think you're right. So let's go back here to track 4, start the dyno. Guessing that 213 watt. That's not bad power. 213 per channel at 4 ohms by 2.
More than it's rated. We say 180.
There it is.
There it is, same power.
213 watts again.
And what's interesting about this is that instead of using 2 separate 1 volt signal outputs, we're now using a single 1 volt.
Yeah, we're basically splitting the voltage. And once again, in series, the voltage doesn't change.
Right.
It's always the same voltage. So that's why you can get away with doing this. The voltage is basically going to double the input voltage to the amplifier, which will allow you to drive both those channels, which effectively are out of phase, but they're really not. You're just driving the positive and negative sides, in different directions.
Yep. So if you guys want to bridge an amplifier and retain stereo output between your left and right, like we talked about earlier, all you need to do is split that signal going into the amp 1 inputs and the amp 2 inputs. You're still going to get the same amount of power output, and you're having a dedicated left and right signal.
If we had that other RCA cable, what we do is go ahead and run the right channel into amp 2 and the left channel into amp 1. And we could bridge and show the same thing. We should be getting about 213 watts output into both those channels at 4 ohms. Well, should we try the 2 ohms?
Yeah, let's do it. I'm curious to see.
You guys got the fire extinguisher ready back there?
Actually, what are our resistance options on there, John?
Ooh, we could go down to 1 ohm, half an ohm, 0.67.
I'm wondering if we can try something between 4 and 2. No, we just.
Well, we go from 4 to 2.
Okay, so let's do 2 and see if it.
We don't recommend this. This is I've got my safety glasses on, so I think we're okay there.
So this is effectively running 1 ohm stereo on this amplifier.
Yeah, same thing as running it 2 ohms mono. So what do you think?
Okay. I didn't expect it to work.
No, it's going to work. It's going to go to a certain point, and then it's going to shut down.
I think we're going to get 250.
193.
Oh, okay.
So
it worked.
Yeah, there's something that we do on our amplifiers that a lot of people don't do. We have something called soft clipping built into the amplifiers. So when they're way overdriven, they're not going to be, pretty much total square wave. We try to rail that back a little bit. So that's what's kind of protecting it. But just to go back, let's go back to 4 ohms, enter. Having fun pushing buttons on the dyno. We should be back up to that 212. These amp dynos are actually kind of fun. Yeah, 212, 213.
Cool. Now, shall we try 1.33 ohms?
Yeah, what do you think? What do you think, guys? Should we do it? I think so.
Bridged at 1.3 ohms.
If we end up killing the amplifier, it'll just come out of your pay because,
Well, or, nobody has to know.
All right, 1.33 ohms bridged on this amplifier. I'm curious to see if it ever goes into protection. Yep, there it is. Went into protection. Look at that, 106. So that's that amplifier protecting itself into way too low of an impedance.
Yeah,
so
still made 100 watts at 1.3 ohms bridged.
So what a lot of people don't understand when we start talking about protection as well, when you have an amplifier that's stable to 4 ohms or 2 ohms, it's not a ruler cutoff. You don't hook up a 4 ohm load to it and the amp immediately shuts off. What'll happen is the amp's going to produce power to a certain point and then it's going to shut off. What usually happens is obviously at a lower impedance, it's going to hit that quicker, so it'll shut down sooner. But technically, the amplifiers will play almost into a dead short. Not quite, but they're going to produce a certain amount of power. It's not just the load hooked up to it. It's not like a magic bullet, like, hey, it's 4 ohm load, amp shut off, didn't even turn it on. So, not like that at all. What else we got to do? What else you want to blow up, Jacob? Anything?
Let's go lower.
Go lower?
Yeah.
Why not? Let's just see what we can do.
That's what's fun about this, is just testing the limits. Let's do 0.67.
All right, let's go as low as it'll possibly go. This isn't the limbo. Track 4. I'm going to say 52 watts, just for fun.
I'm going to say 30 watts.
Ooh, 48.
Oh, nice. You were pretty close.
So, and look at the protection light stayed on a lot longer on that one.
Actually, it went up to 67.
Oh, it did. Actually, it just kept going. So, still not a whole lot of power, but did we hurt the amplifier? Let's go back and see. Track 4, start the dyno, go back to 4 ohms. $215.
We made it better.
Yeah, we broke it in, that's what we did. So that's a lot of power from a pretty affordable little, $229 amplifier that's rated at 65 watts by 4. So it'll do an honest 215 watts by 2. So if you need power, and why would you want more power? Like the tower cans, we make the 1200.2, which is a full range 1200 watt amplifier that does 300 per channel at 4 ohms, does 600 per channel at 2 ohms. But what if you've only got a pair of those? You can actually get by taking the 360.4. And we actually have it in the Marine, the KMA 360.4, which is the Marine version of that amplifier. And you can get, 215 watts to those tower speakers, or 250 watts to your KXML 6x9s, or your Street Series 9, or even if you want to run woofers. The only difference between using this Class AB amplifier and like a 401 as far as power goes is, you're not going to have the subwoofer level control, and this has actually got a 12 dB per octave crossover, not 24. So, but you can absolutely use a Class AB amplifier. Power is power, guys. It doesn't matter. So that's an honest 215 per channel. into two different speakers, because you can only run two speakers or two coils, and you look at the 400.1, I mean, once again, it'll do about 200 watts into two 2-ohm speakers, so very similar. But your big difference is, if I can hold this up without hurting anything, in size between Class AB and Class D, those amplifiers produce almost the same power, and you can see the difference in size. So that is definitely the advantage of Class D. Higher efficiency means you don't have as much heat produced, therefore you don't have to dissipate it. You don't need as big of a heat sink. So, cool. Anybody else got any questions? JW?
Looks like we got 3.
All right. Danny says, any new Kicker key amps coming out? We're still working on producing the current ones, unfortunately. Danny, they're obviously, we're always looking at expanding the amplifier line. Unfortunately, we're still having troubles getting chips for the Key 200.4, so don't look for those anywhere in the near future. As soon as we can get the parts, we know how much you guys love those. We love them here as well. We just can't get the parts to build them. So unfortunately, it's not going to be really quick on the horizon, but we're always, it's great technology. We absolutely love it. So I think you can pretty much count on more key amplifiers coming out in the future whenever that happens to be. So next question, JW. So Dean says, is there an exact date for the L7X solo subwoofer series? What do you think, Jacob?
I still don't think there's an exact date.
There's not an exact date, but I mean, they're on the water, if I remember right.
Yeah, they're on the water.
Which means they're coming. They're on the way.
They're coming. I would...
Close.
I'm sorry?
The 12s,
yeah.
Yes. So the 12-inch 2-ohm are on the way. So I would look for those, probably within the next 60 days or so to actually be shipping. I don't know if the orders have exceeded the inventory that's coming in. So those of you that placed your order for those early, if you've pre-ordered, if you can, we don't even know that. We're not sales guys. We're the tech guys. But if you haven't placed orders for them, go ahead and place orders if they'll let you do that to get on the list, because they are going to go quick. I've talked to several people, actually a couple guys when I was in Louisville, that a guy's already got plans to put 16 of them in the bed of his pickup. So that's going to be extremely loud. I can't wait to hear that thing. That ought to be fun. So sorry, Dean, I don't have an exact date, but I promise you they are coming. So LT says, Kicker, why does a 12-inch sub comp RT 2-ohm always go out and have to press them down so they can start working again? Not even 5 minutes, they go out again. All right, so now we're going to dig down into areas that, hey, we're going to be honest. Some of the comp RT woofers, we had a tensor lead issue. It has been rectified in the past. And that's what's happening, is that tensor lead is actually breaking underneath the spider. Mm-hmm. And it's not an overly common thing, but it does happen occasionally. Obviously, that's exactly what's going on with yours. So the lead underneath the spider is actually separated. When you push in on it, it makes connection. It'll start moving until it pulls apart and breaks connection again. And that's a tensor lead problem. Since yours are doing that, once again, reach out to the store you got them from, or if you ordered them, from online or anywhere else. Go ahead and get those sent back in for warranty. We will replace those. It is an issue that we have determined, and we have corrected the issue in the current production. But once again, like I tell people, it's not heaven, it's Kicker. Things happen sometimes that are out of control, but we always do our best to take care of them. Mm-hmm. So that's exactly what's going on. It is a tensor lead problem. And if you put an ohm meter on it, it's going to read an open circuit.
Yeah, just
if you push in on it, it's going to read the impedance of the coil.
Mm-hmm. Just like if you had a blown coil, except your resistance is coming back when you make that connection again. So I think probably what we would suggest to you is to contact our customer service department in the morning and see if there's anything they can do for you. Generally, if you have a receipt and you're within the warranty period, we can just get it exchanged for you and get you a new one that does not have that issue. So it's worth giving a shot.
Yep, it happens. So I think I'm going to zip back around to the other side of the table so I'm not sitting out in the middle of nowhere.
Well, you don't like being next to the fish tank?
I keep thinking I need a drink or something, or hearing the bubbles going. So great. All right. Aaron T. asked, Kicker, are the Kicker KMA amps start-stop compatible? Here again, that depends on what you mean by start-stop compatible. They are more start-stop compatible than the predecessors, the KXA amplifiers. So what happens with an amplifier, same thing with the CXA amplifiers. What we do in our amplifiers is we build protection in the amplifiers to protect them from getting damaged. And there's something called a low voltage cutoff. Most of the components, the power supply devices and the output devices, do not like to operate at high current, low voltage. So as the voltage drops, you run a lot of power through them, you can tend to make the devices fail. So to prevent that from happening, we use something called low voltage protection. In the past, that was set at about 10.5 volts. On these amplifiers in the KMA, they've actually loosened that up to about 9.5 volts. Now the key products are actually stable down to 6 volts. So the key amplifiers, the key 500 and the key 204, are actually start-stop compatible 100% down to 6 volts. These are more start-stop compatible. They'll actually operate down to about 9.5 volts without shutting off. So great question. Thanks for asking that one, because that is something we do get asked every now and then. So.
Yeah, I see you guys talking about my chewing gum in the comments. I went ahead and spit it out for you.
Fine, I'm just going to have to knock his teeth out sooner or later. All right, Damien says, is there a difference in sound between Class D and Class AB? And, you know, I've got to be honest with you, the answer to that is yes. There is a difference. Which is better is entirely up to you. There is no, you know, this is always better than this. Class D amplifiers have come a long way when, you know, ever since they were first introduced. I think about 1990 was about the first time I ever heard a Class D amplifier, and they sounded awful. They really did. Now, what made them sound so bad and sound so mechanical and rough is the switching speed of the transistors. Now, the Class D amplifier, you're basically turning the outputs of the amplifier on and off. You need to do that a minimum of 3 times above the frequency you're going to be playing. So if you're going to be playing 100 hertz at the highest frequency, that transistor, that output device, has got to turn on and off 300 times a second. If you want to play 20K, it's got to turn on and off 20,000 times 3. In other words, 60,000 times per second. Back in the days when Class D were new, they didn't have the capability to do that, so they were just barely audio quality. I mean, they made noise, but not the best noise. Now you look at some of our amplifiers, you know, we're talking about 20K needs to switch at 60K. We're looking at 336,000. Basically switching that transistor on and off per second. So that's the advantage of the technology, and it really is, you know, undiscernible between a Class AB amplifier. A really good Class D amplifier will sound better than a poorly designed Class AB amplifier. So is there a difference in the sound? Yes, but I mean, there is no right or wrong when it comes to sound. It's whatever you like better. And we do this in the back with our amplifiers. We'll put a Class AB and a Class D. We'll play them back and forth and let people pick which they think sounds better. And it's interesting. You know, some like this one, some like that one. So there really is no right or wrong. But the technology is there that they have the capabilities of sounding extremely good. So great question. Jeremy said, Ashy Larry, my good buddy, question for me. All right, if I have a 5-volt dedicated low-level input in my head unit, is it necessary to still run high-level inputs by KX amplifiers for better output? You always want to run as much voltage into the amplifier as possible. We start talking about the fact that an amplifier is there to amplify signal. If I run a 1-volt signal into the amplifier and I want 100 volts on the output, amplify that signal 100 times. Along with the noise, along with distortion, anything else. If I run a 5-volt signal into the amplifier, now it only has to amplify it 20 times.
20 times.
So it's always better to run as much voltage into the amplifiers as possible. That's why we've set up our FIT inputs to handle 10 volts, which is equivalent to 25 watts on, you know, our entry-level FIT inputs. Now, the CXA amplifiers handle 40 volts or 400 watts right into the input. So run as much voltage into the amplifier as the amplifier can handle. You know, the old amplifiers would only accept maybe 1 or 2 volts input, so that's why we had to have the line output converters that step the voltage down, and of course they had ground isolation as well. But the new amplifiers with a 10-volt input, any amplifier that's got a 10-volt differential input or a FIT input can handle 25 watts right into the RCA input, and the 40 volts are 400 watts. So literally any signal you can get out of, you know, pretty much any stock, you know, audio system in any automaker, you can run right into the RCA input. So another great question, Ashley. Appreciate that.
Ooh, I want to answer this
one.
All
right, Arlo says,
how can I get a Kicker Audio University shirt like the one you have on?
Well, that one?
Like this one.
Oh, this
on the
one.
backside it says
this
Kicker
one?
U. Yeah, so I'll tell you how.
How did you get yours?
First step, write a job application. Send it to Aaron Malin, and when you get accepted for the job, you'll get one. I think John, Aaron, Carlos, and I are the only 4 people that have those T-shirts in the world.
Yep, and like I say, nothing, against anyone. This is just something we designed for the training department. Now, the shirt you have on,
Yeah, this one
is available.
shop shirt that's got a cool retro kicker logo on the back. It is available for sale on our website, and any of you guys can get that.
Yeah, if you go to our website, there's a section for all the clothing and all the little trinkets that you can buy with all the kicker logos. And got some pretty neat shirts and jackets this year.
Oh, yeah.
There's a really cool black shirt that's got kind of a different material in the center, and there's a black and yellow one, so if you want to look like a bumblebee.
Yeah,
But it still is a cool shirt.
If any of you guys were at SEMA or have been to any of our trade shows throughout the year that we've attended, usually the staff will be wearing some of those shirts. And we have those same ones, the shirts that we wore at SEMA, available on our website. So we've got a really nice blue OGO polo that's super comfortable. And then like John said, we've got one that's like yellow on the top and black on the bottom. And then the third one is kind of like a dark gray with almost like a greenish yellow kicker logo on it, I believe. But yeah, so that one's not available, but we've got some other ones that are still pretty cool that we've worn in the past.
We always change it up too. We don't always. Actually, it's really cool walking around the building, seeing some of the old shirts, 20 plus years old.
Matter of fact, I like to collect those old shirts. So
if you have them, send them to him.
yeah,
I unfortunately end up giving a lot of mine away. Get so many shirts, and we get a lot of other vendor shirts. Of course, we've got buddies in the industry. We always trade shirts back and forth, and it gets to the point where you just get too many in the closet. When you do it for a long time, you got to kind of weed it down a little bit. So
yeah, maybe if I can convince Aaron to let me, I'll wear and break out some of my retro kicker clothes for you guys on the show.
that might be fun. We might just have a retro kicker day with pictures of some of the old stuff, and too cool. I like that idea. Have we ever done the new Kicker Museum on the show? I can't remember if we have or not.
I don't think we've featured that on the show either. Did
we did? Ernie says we did. Oh, that's right, when Roger did that. All right, but if you guys happen to be in the Stillwater, Oklahoma area between 8 and 5, Monday through Friday, you want to come see our museum, come to the Kicker store and see. We've got a great little kind of, by invitation only, but if you're a Kicker fan, just ask and we'll give you a tour of the special little museum that's a history of Kicker. I mean, all the way from, the very first radio from 1926 to, a lot of stuff that we never even produced.
Yeah.
When we do tours, sometimes we tell people, well, we always tell them, sometimes you'll see things in the building when you're on a tour that, something that we don't offer for sale. That doesn't mean you're absolutely going to see it. There's projects that we start that for one reason or another, whether it's economics or, the market shifts or it just isn't, a viable product, that we have to shelve. So there's a lot of bizarre things. We did speakers for Xbox one time. We actually prototyped little pods that had a little 4-inch speaker, a little tweeter, and a little powered subwoofer, and we were all the way to the point of making the tooling for that. And then they came back telling us how much they wanted to sell for, and we said no. We honestly will not produce a product that was, the quality control would have to be just ridiculously lax to make something of that price point, and that's not where Steve is. I mean, you have to have a certain level of product to be a Kicker product. I mean, when we say it's a Kicker entry-level product, that doesn't mean it's an entry-level product. We put technology in everything we offer. Well, 25 Hertz Life asks,
any Kicker Gold subs in we don't sell any, but John and I are working on a special project for one of the upcoming shows. Should we go ahead and talk about that, John?
I guess we're going to have to now.
Well,
surprise!
Yeah, so what we're looking at doing is building a special 50th anniversary enclosure with 2 Comp Gold 12s with our own hands. And we're going to try and make it look really, really cool for you guys.
Something cool.
Yeah, we're looking at some unique box designs, but something we considered. We didn't consider putting amplifiers on it, but we're going to have I don't know. You'll see when it's done. It's going to look super cool.
I've got some ideas now. Now that you brought that up, so thanks for the idea, 25 Hertz. That's actually a good idea. So we're probably not going to be doing anything like Bobby does, the Gately boxes with the acrylic. So we want to do something completely different. But what my whole idea behind doing this was to basically give you guys some different ideas. And when we show the pictures, which we're going to hear in just a little bit, I always like things that are completely unique and new. Just copying the same thing that people do all the time. I mean, it's not exciting. So, I mean, I know you guys are a lot more creative. I mean, you guys, Stu's been sending me some pictures and some cool stuff. Mike Craner. Ashley, Larry, and Baba, all you guys are giving me some great information and great stuff. So thanks for sending that in. And like I say, keep getting creative, guys, because there's no end to what you can do with this stuff. So I think we're about ready to take a break, and then I think we got some things to give away in a few other little areas. We got to do the fails, we got to do the installs, questions. We can't forget questions, and we got the giveaways coming up. So we're going to take a quick break, and we'll be coming right back to go over some cool little pictures and some questions, and we're going to give some stuff away. So see you here in just about a minute.
It's been a long road since the original Kicker christened that first pickup truck. It kicked off a car audio renaissance, and upgrading your music in a vehicle was a requirement. America's music machines became living loud over your passion, your emotion, your existence. Outdoors or on the open road, your sound is Kicker.
And for those of you that were counting, that was not a minute, that was 30 seconds. I never know what commercial he's going to put up there. So, excuse me, here's more of this wonderful sinus infection coming back to haunt me that I've had for 2 weeks. So, Ernie, why don't you go ahead? We're going to start off with fails. Fails sounds kind of fun right now. So, if you guys don't know, I always like to pull up some pictures that are not necessarily the best installation procedures. If this happens to be any pictures of your guys' work, I apologize. We're not trying to insult you. We're going to give you some constructive criticism, like don't do this.
Yeah.
So can you even tell what that screw is, Jacob, by that picture? I mean, they did ground the. Well, I guess it's the power wire that grounded it.
Maybe blue means ground in this case. It looks like it's holding on by like 2 strands.
Yeah,
so.
Not only that, if you look at the screw, I'm almost thinking that's one of the screws out of the terminal barrier strip on an amplifier.
Oh, yeah, it is.
It's got the little square washer with the little feet, so it's really not even making that good a contact. And obviously, you can tell that the paint is not scraped away.
Yeah, the paint's not scraped away.
And not to mention, it's what we consider a power wire being blue.
I mean, maybe they figured that's why we give them extra terminals on the mono amplifiers, is so they can take the screws out.
Yeah, if you're not using the center too, there you go. Well, that just actually prompted another interesting thought. Those are machine screws. So did they actually drill a hole through this and put a nut on the backside?
They had to have, or it just so happened to fit.
Yeah, or use a drywall screw. There you go, nice tapered. No. Strip the paint away from the material. Use a bolt that thing down, then coat it with some type of, non-conductive, like a rubberized spray coating, and use the right color of wires. That's why with our marine amplifiers and our marine power kits, we use very specific wire colors for the marine industry, which are red for power, yellow for ground. We do that for safety, so if something happens in the boat, anybody knows to cut the yellow wires. Those are the ground wires. They don't have to guess which wires they're cutting or start cutting them all. Because you go to cut a power wire and a ground wire that you don't know what colors they are, they're the same, and you short those together, you're going to blow a big hole in your cutters. And I did that when I was little. I actually cut an extension cord with a pair of scissors.
And that
blew a
explains
big
everything.
chunk out of the scissors.
Everything you need to know about John.
Probably lit me up pretty well too. So, all right. So moving right along to the next fail. What do you think, Jacob?
I think a lot of things. Yeah, he used copper at least.
We don't know if it's oxygen free, but it looks like decent copper.
I mean, okay, so you're going to kill me for this, but this reminds me of a time when I was in a pinch and I used a hose clamp as a battery terminal. Just like this, I put the wire down around the side of the terminal and then ran the hose clamp around the outside of it.
Not going to kill you. Sometimes you do what you got to do. We all live and learn. We got to start somewhere. So it can't be the best,
The reason why you're going to kill me is because it's still like that. It's been there for 2 years. Which it's on a tractor. It's not on a car. So if something happens, it's just at the farm. But
Jacob, I got no respect for you that you admit that. I've done some pretty scary things myself too, and I wish I could even think of them, because I'd tell you if I could remember. I've just put them out of my mind. It's like, oh my God, I can't believe I did that. So, yeah, just not a very good. In fact, that terminal doesn't even look like it's hardly over the post any longer. But I only hope there's a fuse somewhere on that wire. We will never know unless one of you guys out there actually took this picture and sent it in. Here's another interesting one. Proper mounting of your speakers. Zip ties?
Hey, if it sits, it ships, man.
Yeah, I don't know if I'd say that, but yeah, zip tie your speaker to the back. You're probably gonna get some rattles.
Yeah, I imagine by the way that zip tie is angled, when they put the door panel on, it's probably going to get pushed in and touch the cone at the very least.
And it's gonna make some noise.
It's going to make some buzzing, and yeah, it's yeah.
So we're gonna call this a fail, right? All right. I don't have words for this one.
It looks like he couldn't find any 4-gauge butt connectors.
But look how close they are to the terminal of the amplifier. Like, did you really need them? I mean, were you really 4 inches too short on wire?
That's a good point.
And then zip tie the wires together?
Well, I don't know, man.
Well, they're double zip tied at least.
Yeah, I mean, they're not going anywhere except to each other when he takes a sharp turn. So.
And of course, they're completely unprotected.
Yeah, he could have at least taped it, put electrical tape over it.
That's the other point I was getting at, because you know that red wire touches down on that seat belt or whatever that is down on the bottom. I assume that's a seat belt. That's going to be some really nice sparks, especially if it's not fused up front. But you know, I got to give them credit for something. Look at the gauge of that remote wire.
Yeah.
It's like a 10 gauge remote wire and 4 gauge power wires.
I can't tell if that little piece of ground wire coming out of the amp, I can't tell if that's tinned on the end or if he wrapped tinfoil around it or what.
It might even be aluminum wire.
Yeah, it's hard to tell.
I mean, you know, maybe we really don't want to know, but I know someone that, you know, always used to tell me that, you know, running thicker, you know, remote wire makes the amplifier sound better. And fortunately it does not. Our amplifiers, at least ours, the remote lead pulls less than a milliamp, so less than 1,000th of an amp of current. So it's not about the gauge wire, it's about the voltage, and just enough voltage to turn the amplifier on. So once again, we're going to chalk this one up to a fail. And just, you know, it is that time right now, that the old tax return season. And tax return, you mean car audio gear fund? So
yeah, what tax return?
Yeah, exactly. Here's another one I love. So Darth Vader. I find your lack of bass disturbing, because that is what we do here. So, yes, we like to have some fun with those too. But now let's get on to the other cool things. Let's go back into the actual cool install stuff, and then we'll get into questions. So, once again, thinking outside of the box. Ernie, pull up the laptop. I'm going to zoom in on this a little bit more.
Joey, while I see your comment and while I'm thinking about it, the new Warhorse amplifier is full bridge. It's not half bridge, it's full bridge. But he was asking if we're coming out with any full bridge amplifiers.
Now, what's really interesting, you bring about an interesting subject. If you go back and watch the show where we had Joe Hobart, our director of electronics, I mean, Joe said it, you can have a very good design full bridge and a very poor design full bridge. Mm-hmm. So, or good design half bridge or a bad design half bridge. So it really, one is not better than the other. It's the application and the basically the carry out and the construction of the board and the layout. So it does make a difference if they're bridgeable or not, obviously. But this is a great little install. I mean, just simple, clean, but around the amplifier, I really like the use of different materials, a nice little subtle blue glow around it. And of course the glow, and that's obviously the KXA amplifier with the TCW RT enclosure. But if you look at that enclosure, it almost looks like he stripped the carpet off and painted it. Mm-hmm. Or sprayed it with bed liners. So great use, and once again, that doesn't void the warranty, doesn't change the sound, it just tailors it more for your own custom install. And once again, it's all about doing something a little bit different than the guy down the street, something kind of cool and neat. So hats off to the installer of this one. I unfortunately didn't save the name of who did it. Another cool install, nice and clean. I really like this. Once again, it's painted to match the carve, that little trim ring around the amplifiers, a nice little recessed on the L7T sub in the corner there. That looks like a Chevelle. Jacob, don't you have one of those?
Yeah, I've got a 71 sitting in my garage.
Yeah, that's pretty close to that, isn't it?
Yeah.
Can't really tell. Almost it's got to be somewhere close to that.
I've got different taillights than that one, so that looks like it's a different year. But yeah, it's definitely got the stripes on it, so maybe an SS that they repainted. But it's cool that the amp rack trim matches the color of the car.
Yeah, and I love doing stuff like that. I love, like, say, the little chamfer here, and the way this is actually tilted back, but it's actually, basically radius very smoothly. And I'm sure this is an access panel for something, maybe air ride or whatever else happens to be there. But nice install, very clean. And, you know, obviously I'd love to have the car in the install. So
Yeah.
great work on that one. This is kind of cool. This is a boat installed. Of course, it's using, you know, our 6.5-inch KM speakers, and it looks like a 10-inch woofer like the KM10 there, but it's not. If you notice closely, that's not a woofer that you see behind the grill, but it is using an LED grill. But what it really is one of the TV enclosures.
Oh, that's cool.
So very cool. Nicely done on this one. Basically, it's a 10-inch marine grill with mesh that's allowing the base to escape from under. I assume this is a seat pedestal or a storage area under a boat, but you know, nice creative work, you know, and I really like the fact that that sub is centered around that grill, because depending on the frequency is going to really make a difference which end of the sub has the most output. Obviously, at the tuning frequency, the passive has all the output, and above or below that, the active woofer is going to have more of the output. So this actually probably acoustically works out extremely well. So great job, great creativity, and nice execution on that install. And here's an install that we got sent. Stu, thank you for sending this in. Once again, very, very clean install. Taking the passive radiators with the comp RTs. He built his own enclosures, really tailored that box to match the inside of the vehicle. You know, so the top of the enclosure has the same, you know, recessed groove, that same style as that factory trim panel below the window. But extremely clean wiring, nice little amp boards that the amps are mounted on to hold everything tight and secure. So Stu, great job on that install. It looks fantastic. So that's going to wrap up the installs. I think we're down to two final things. Jacob, I think you have some questions from people that sent in. And once again, if you guys do have questions, remember support@kicker.com. Feel free to go ahead and submit those questions. We got 4 guys that answer those, usually by the following day. They're very good at what they do. And the nice thing is, if they don't know the answer, we've got a whole team of engineers right here in the building. They can seek those guys out and really get the down and dirty about what's going on or what someone needs to do. So here's a couple questions that we got sent to us by viewers and listeners like you guys. So we're going to let Jacob tackle these and see where we end up.
Yeah, so the first question says, when I play my system very loud, after a short amount of time, my high frequencies cut out and the system does not sound as good as it does at low volume. When I turn it down, the sound returns. Do I have bad speakers or a bad amplifier?
Or bad ears.
Or bad ears. So the answer to all three is going to be no. What you're hearing is actually a safety thing that we build into all of our speakers. So there's a little thermistor in line going to the tweeter, and when you run distorted or clipped frequencies through that thermistor, it's going to heat up, and once it reaches a certain temperature, it's going to break the connection going to the tweeter until it cools off and restores that connection. That way you're protecting the voice coil and the tweeter instead of damaging, or yeah, you're protecting the voice coil and the tweeter and preventing it from being damaged. Instead, that thermistor is literally taking the heat for it.
Kind of works like protection on an amplifier, like thermal protection.
Yeah, exactly. And it's really cool the way that it works, but a lot of people don't know about it, so they assume that they've got bad speakers. But the answer, no, it's a safety thing that's doing that.
So what happens when your woofer heaps up and shuts off?
Well, we don't have it for the woofer, so that means your woofer's toast.
Yeah, unfortunately, it's not it's not reliable enough at very high power like that to really protect a woofer. Mm-hmm. So that's why we don't use those in the woofers. But hey, like we talked about before, don't clip your amplifier, and you won't be burning up your speakers. So
yeah,
and we do put those in all of our coax speakers and our components, so some type of tweeter protection. So it's just there. I mean, that's telling you you're overdriving, your source. Your amplifier, your head unit. So if you want it that loud, you need more power and more speakers.
Yep, it's just like the lights in the crossovers for our component
once
sets.
It flash to the music.
Yeah. Next question. I want to replace the speakers on my motorcycle because the ones I have are very scratchy sounding. What speakers do you recommend?
I'd like to know what he means by scratchy sounding.
Yeah, scratchy could mean he's got dirt in the voice coil, or maybe some water got in there, and maybe bugs in the voice coil if he's not using a power sport speaker, or it could mean that he burnt the voice coil a little bit and it started to unwind. There's a lot of things it could be, but the short answer to your question is anything except car audio speakers. Marine speakers would work great, like the KMXL speakers for the fairing or the saddlebag, or we make power sport speakers that are lightweight for Harleys too. So we've got one for the saddlebags with an angled tweeter, and we also make some that would fit in the fairing, but they won't allow water or dust or dirt to get to the voice coil, so you won't have that scratchy sound unless you burn them up.
Yeah, if you actually take a coax car speaker and look at the tweeter's actually mounted on a pole right in the center of the speaker. Well, where that pole goes down into the speaker, there's usually a gap there so it doesn't rub and make noise. So that gap is where water gets down into the motor structure of the speaker, and that's cast iron. I mean, iron will rust. And if you get, metal shavings or dirt down in there, you're never going to get it out. So that could be other, things that happen with scratch. Or like I say, you could have some critters that crawled in there, like June bugs or something. Well,
yeah,
I have to be a pretty thin June bug to get in there, but
or
still.
I've seen wasp nests in there before too.
Yeah, on the back side of the speakers.
Yeah.
They get in there, the mud daubers build a nest on the back of your speaker. So before you assume your speaker is burned up, make sure you don't have anything living in it. Like ported enclosures, you get mice that live in the ports. Yeah. We won't go into all that, but you got to just make sure that it is actually the speaker, not something that you can correct on your own. So great question.
And the last one, I want to put a subwoofer and an amp in my new Chevy truck. I bought a CXA 400.1 downfiring 10-inch subwoofer and a speaker to RCA adapter. I'm having a hard time finding a way to turn the amp on, and presently have a separate toggle switch under the dash to turn it on.
You ever seen that?
Yeah, I have.
I've seen that a lot of times.
Is there a better way? Yeah, so there are a couple different ways you could do it. Since it's a CXA 400.1, it will turn on using DC offset, and it can accept a high-level input signal. So you just want to take your speaker wires from whatever you're using as your source and wire it directly to the inputs of the amplifier. Another way that you could do it if you need to, which isn't necessary, but we like to sell more kicker product, right? You could use the Kisslock 2, which is a high-to-low converter, and it has a remote 12-volt output that it creates using the two legs of DC offset, basically. So, yeah, there's a couple different ways you could do that, but the toggle switch probably...
it works.
It works, but it can be removed and save you trouble when you get in and out of the car, and prevent dead batteries if you accidentally leave it on. So
that gets annoying turning that thing on and off. But I guess that the easiest thing to try is pull out your line output converter.
Yeah, pull it out
and see if it works. If it doesn't, then get a Kisslock 2. Because like Jacob said, that'll take the DC offset and it'll turn it into a switched 12 volts from just the speaker lead, so that should work great. And the other nice thing about the Kisslock 2, if you do have like some of the newer vehicles, and I think he did say it was a new Chevy truck, didn't he?
Yeah, a new Chevy.
It may actually have one of the smart radios that needs a load on it, and the nice thing about the Kisslock 2 is it's got a 60 ohm load built in, which should satisfy the parameters to make sure that that radio stays operating and producing signal. So, any other questions?
That's it for today.
All right, guys, I think we're right about 9 o'clock. How do we always do this? It's like, we got a clock up there we're watching and kind of make this happen. So it's time to give some stuff away. I hope you guys have all registered. I forgot to tell you when the cutoff was. That was at 8 o'clock, an hour ago. So if you tune in 2 weeks, make sure you register before 8 o'clock. Register for the weekly giveaway. And no, 25 hertz, this is not rigged. So before you put it up there, this is not rigged. This is the way it works. So Bill Frog, who is going to be the third prize winner for tonight? The Kicker t-shirt, the Kicker UnMasked koozie, and they're going to get the EB400 Bluetooth earbuds. And that is who?
I was zoned out, sorry. Mark Y from Florida. Woo!
Why Mark? No, Mark Y.
No, Mark Y.
Mark Y, congratulations. Watch for an email from Bill Frog. He's going to ask for your name, your address, your phone number, and your shirt size. So make sure you watch for that so we can get these products sent out to you right away. So the second prize, or runner-up, which is going to get the Tabor, the Bluetooth over-the-ear headphones, the Kicker koozie, and the Kicker t-shirt. Who is that going to be?
Let's see who we got.
No one. Yeah, Bill says forget it. No one else wins anything. We're going to keep the rest of the prizes. So apparently our prize puller, this shows you that it's not rigged. We got to wait for the computer to do this. So, all right, Bill, there we are. Rodney M. from Indiana. I was just in Indiana last week. So I don't know if I saw you while I was there, Rodney, but if I did, hey, if not, hey, come to Oklahoma. Come take a tour of the plant. But congratulations. You are the runner-up prize winner tonight for the Tabor over-the-ear Bluetooth headphones, the UnMasked koozie, and the UnMasked Gray T-shirt that we have right behind. Do you have one of the gray shirts?
I have a couple of the dark gray ones.
Yeah, I don't think I have any of them. I mean,
I don't have that one, but I've got one that's like a shade that's in between the enclosures below it and the shirt, so it's like a dark gray.
oh, I think I remember that one. That's actually kind of a cool color. That to me, I can't wear anything that light because I'm going to ketchup on it, you know.
No, you won't eat your food too fast to have any drips.
Well, yeah, but the ketchup still flies, so that happens too. Grand prize winner for tonight, we'll let you guys all go till 2 weeks from now, is going to be Bill. Drum roll, please. Who's going to be the grand prize winner? That's going to be Chris O. from Georgia. So congratulations, Chris O. You guys make sure, and of course, Mark Y., make sure you watch for that email from Bill Frog. Name, address, phone number, and T-shirt size, and make sure your address is not a P.O. box, because they will not ship to P.O. boxes. So I'm not sure if we got any other pressing questions. I want to thank all you guys for joining us. 25 Hertz Life, Baba, Ashley, Larry, Bobby Burkett, and of course Andy. I mean, you guys really make this show work for us, and thank you so much for your sponsorship and your support and dedication. And make sure you guys tune in for Living Loud with Andy. I actually caught a little bit of it last week when I got back from one of my trips. So hopefully I'll be able to get home in time to catch some more of you guys tonight, Andy, and have a great show. And thank you guys. Have a great 2 weeks, and we'll see you back here at 7:30 Central Time on the Kicker YouTube and Facebook channel for UnMasked Live. So thanks, guys. Good night.
See ya.